Now, we've been talking quite a lot on the show about Marcus Rashford's free school meal campaign. It's something the Children's Commissioner, Anne Longfield, has got some pretty strong feelings about. She joins us now. Thank you very much for being with us. So, do you think the government should provide free school meals for children over the holidays?
I think they should. I've been horrified by the debate and really disappointed about the debate over recent days. We're a wealthy country. It's 2020, and have a debate about whether we should make sure that hungry and vulnerable children should have enough to eat is something which is strikingly similar to chapters, I think, of what we'd expect to see in Oliver Twist, a novel published in the 19th century. So let's stop the divisive and distracting conversations and start focusing. I think we all have to agree now there's a problem. There's a problem with children going hungry in this country, and there's a problem with children in poverty. And we need now, knowing that, to focus on what that solution is.
At the same time, though, the government would argue that the welfare system is there to help parents who need more income in a way that it wasn't really in Dickens's time. They're also saying, of course, that providing this would cost money. Do you think that they have a point?
Well, of course, we do have a welfare system. It needs to work better for those poor families, and we need to make sure we have more support in place for those poor families, the majority of which are working. But there's also a pandemic going on. So we entered the pandemic knowing there are about a third of all children were living in poverty. There'll be children waking up this morning and not having food in the cupboards. Do we really want that to be the case? But also it's increasing because we know that there's people all the time, families who are facing unemployment. So this isn't going to go away. Now, I'm told that the PM understands this. I'm told that there are people around him having positive discussions about this. We've had very good suggestions from Robert Halford about breakfast. The Dimbleby proposals around food and activities are still there. So I want this to move from something which is a possibility and a discussion to something which is real. And the clock is ticking. We need to ensure that those families and children have the confidence that they're going to have food on the table. We're out of step with the rest of the UK, and we need to make sure that free school meals, it isn't the long-term solution, but are available not only at Christmas, but up until April, like the rest of the UK.
I'm interested in what you make of some of the political reaction, because it's kicked off a bit of a storm, hasn't it, on social media. The Conservative MP Ben Bradley tweeted about two children in his constituency, saying one lives in a crack den, another in a brothel. These are the kids that most need our help. Extending free school meals doesn't reach these kids. He then replied to a tweet in which the other user said, £20 cash direct to a crack den and a brothel really sounds like the way forward with this one. And Ben Bradley said that's what free school meal vouchers in the summer effectively did. What did you make of that exchange?
Well, I think that's deeply disrespectful, as I think many of the residents of Mansfield have said. Look, we should be proud of providing that level of support for vulnerable children. I think most people are. There are other ways that we can do this. We can look at putting money onto child benefit. We can look at increasing universal credit. All of those things need to happen. But to make that kind of comment, I think, is deeply disrespectful. And if there are children living in dangerous situations in his constituency, he should be calling the local authority and social services to make sure that those children get help, rather than going onto Twitter to talk about it. So again, distraction. Let's look at what are the problems, and let's look at how we can help children have a better opportunities now, food on the table, and also get numbers in poverty down.
I'm keen to touch on mental health as well. It's something we were talking about with Dr. Rosanna Allen-Khan too. Are you concerned about the impact that lockdown and the social restrictions are having on the mental health of children?
Well, kids have found this really tough. All their normal routine was kind of taken from under their feet overnight when schools closed back in March. And, for kids, time's different. It feels like a lifetime for us, but for them, you know, this could be a large portion of their experience as they've been growing up. They don't know what's going to come. They don't know what's ahead. We've seen that there's high levels of stress in children during the pandemic, and actually a third of all children saying they're worried about their future. They don't know what their prospects will be. And there were some really alarming figures out this week from actually the NHS and ONS that showed that now 1 in 6 children probably have a mental health condition. Now, that's a huge number of children in any classroom at any time. Before the pandemic, Simon Stevens, the head of the NHS, called children's mental health an epidemic. Well, it's getting worse because of the pandemic. So I want to see a really robust response from government in their spending review. I want to see a mental health counsellor in every school, part and parcel of life for kids, so they can get the help when they need it.
Really concerning, of course. Another big concern during the last months and year has been the number of children who've missed out on so much of their education because of schools being closed. Now we're in a situation where many families are seeing their schools being sent home for their children being sent home for 2 weeks if someone in the whole year group has tested positive. Do you think the rules on school bubbles need to change so that our children can spend longer periods at school?
So I've argued for a long time to get kids back into school, so September was a relief. The numbers overall are good, 9 out of 10 kids in school, and most schools still open fully. But of course, when there are outbreaks, and you know there are going to be more of those, we have to live with this. There has to be a sensible way to manage it. Now, I've been speaking to Public Health England this week about the rules and the guidance around the number of children that are sent at home when there are outbreaks. The guidance from Education, Department for Education, say a small number around the child, but sometimes that gets lost in translation and whole year groups are sent home. Now, of course, you know, we have to be safe and sensible about this, but we need to get that right so that children aren't being sent home unnecessarily. And the other part of that, of course, when they're at home, they need to carry on being able to learn. There needs to be good remote education and lessons online, but also they need to have the laptops and techs there, and not all children have that yet. So again, great urgency about getting that into place.